Welcome to part 5 of our 5-part series. I'm really happy about the last the last 4 sessions we did, James, because there was a ton of knowledge that we shared. We're doing the first time right now live on LinkedIn, which I'm super excited about. But over the last, say, 5 weeks, I learned a ton on design work from you, James, and I really appreciate that. And this week, part 5, we're going to be talking about using the design software to size a common liquid line in a CO2 system, which is super exciting. James, welcome back. How you doing, brother?
Hey, thanks, Trevor, and thanks for the kind words there. And hopefully, participants this evening will enjoy and learn a little bit of something, and feel free to ask questions. It's a two-way thing. Perhaps we can learn from each other. I absolutely love these sessions. I'm going to just open the screen, and I noticed some new names up this evening, which is absolutely fantastic. Before I start off with the slide deck, though, what I will say is if anybody on this call would like to have a demonstration version of MicroPipe White Row software, reach out to me and Trevor, and we can get that organized within a couple of days. So feel free to reach out. We've got user guidance notes as well as a host of videos available on Trevor's Refrigeration Mentor YouTube channel.
Yeah, awesome. And we're going to continue to do this because it's all about sharing knowledge, all about helping you out there to really have the cutting edge in design, in pipe work. And
hey, Trevor, could you allow me to share screen?
Yes. There you go.
Awesome. So again, just thank you for everybody for joining us. Trevor said today I'm going to be showing how to use MicroPipe in dual temperature systems. So I'm going to be using the software to size a medium temperature suction pipework and then low temperature pipework in a distributed system. And then I'll be sizing the liquid line. So for all the new people who've joined, thanks very much. Real just history lesson before I crack on. White Row software, MicroPipe, has been choice of the UK applications designers in refrigeration for over 30 years. It was developed by my mentor, Ian Ramsey, the late, great Ian Ramsey, passed away sadly 3.5 years ago. I was incredibly close to Ian, very complex individual, very difficult to get on with in some respects, but I was one of his chosen ones who he shared a lot of knowledge with, so I feel absolutely privileged. When Ian sadly passed, we were in the throes of talking about a transition of me taking away and carrying on his legacy. We didn't get that far. Fortunately, with some great support from some IT professionals and partners here in the UK, we got the software back up and running. I think the first thing a lot of new people on the call will think the software is great, it's really fit for purpose, but it looks a little bit 1999. I'll be completely honest, we're going to be going through a modernization process. The software itself is written in Visual Basic. It's a Microsoft supported language, but it's obviously with cloud development. It's no longer a forward thinking. It's a software program, but in the coming, we can't put a time scale on, but we're hoping so within the next 12 to 18 months, we'll have the brand new White Row software MicroPipe with lots of additional features. And that's one thing I'd shout out, and I know Trevor will join me in this. Even if you don't want to put your hands up, but you feel you'd like to ask a question on email, any suggestions with the software, if you think, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Please throw them in, because once we start that modernization, we complete it, it will always be kept on top of, but I'd rather capture all the great ideas from throughout the industry prior to actually starting with the recode. So cracking on, mini-series demo 5. So for everyone's benefit, an overview of the software, what it does. MicroPipe calculates line sizes based on user-defined parameters. So you'll see me inputting those parameters. They can be customer-specified design parameters or parameters that an individual design engineer wants to use. There's no necessarily rights or wrongs with what you choose as a parameter, as long as ultimately your parameters are going to end up with a good, efficient working system. So the software calculates suction lines, liquid lines, discharge lines, liquid drain lines, relief and vent lines, and also valves and bends can be added to each circuit, which I'll be doing this evening in today's session, which is really good because every time we get refrigerant passing up through a bend or over a valve, it's incurring a pressure loss, as small as those may be. When we're talking about distributed systems, especially in large supermarkets, those small losses can amount to a lot. So it's important to know what those are. Other pieces of software that are available, I'm not knocking those at all. The single line softwares that are available as free download apps, great. You know, when you want to troubleshoot, when you've just got a query, absolutely fine. What this does is it's like the jigsaw of refrigeration pipe work. It's not just a piece, it's a collection of multiple pieces, and it brings everything together. So talking the jigsaw theme, what it effectively does, right in the middle, just an example rack. To the left, some showcases. To the right, condenser or gas cooler, depending on refrigerant. So it effectively sizes those lines between showcases and or cold room coolers with the rack, and then from the rack discharge header outlet to the condenser or gas cooler, and then those liquid drain lines back before we send from the outlet of the liquid receiver back to the showcases. Just some terminology, especially for those who haven't participated in any of these demos to date. Just bear with me. I'm just going to try to just get there we go. I can see the full screen now. So design entries. As I've said, user defined, and it asks for evaporating temperature, soup heat, maximum and minimum liquid temperature, condensing temperature, liquid line rise, and maximum line penalties. So the great thing is with maximum line penalties is traditionally I'm going to talk now sort of in UK metric terms, we might call for a 2 Kelvin line loss from outlet of evaporator over to the inlet of the suction header on the rack. And altogether, that's a combined 2 Kelvin with all your fixtures on. You can actually tweak that, so you could drop it down to a Kelvin, and in doing so you might end up with some suction line which is slightly bigger than with 2 Kelvin, so maybe a more costly installation. But the upside, and it's a big upside, is we can save energy, we can save consumption, because that rack's going to operate, it's going to operate more efficiently, it's going to be at a slightly higher saturation temperature. Every one degree that we save in terms of Celsius, that's 3 to 4% energy. Multiply it out by 15 years, which is possibly an expected life cycle of a refrigeration system. And hey, we've more than compensated for the slight increase in lines, and we're also giving our customers something a little bit back. And energy, hot topic here in the UK. I don't know about elsewhere in the world, but we've seen 54% rise in April. It's going to be double. By October, it's going to be double what it was 12 months ago. It's not good news. Moving on from that, every piece of pipe, when we size using MicroPipe, is classified as a circuit. So we can have multiple circuits in a system. You could just do a simple one-line check, or you can have up to 200 if you've got a huge hypermarket type system, and with just like one large rack. You know, it wouldn't necessarily be very common, but it allows you to build up a system of that size. You've got two types of circuit: a terminal. So everything in White Rose software, before you action anything, it assumes that the circuit is a network, which I'll touch on for next. But a network is a circuit that carries a load or a duty. For example, a known duty from a showcase display case, which we'd input from based on manufacturer's design information, or for cold room coolers, what size the duty of that room needs to be and how many coolers we've got. So that's effectively a terminal. A network circuit, that's a circuit that carries a load or duty, or a series of load and duties. White row software MicroPipe, it works from the fixture furthest back from the refrigeration plant itself, and it builds up from there. So if you imagine, it's like a river which runs off to small streams. Eventually those streams have got to end and start and then feed the bigger river. So that's the easiest way, or maybe consider it like a tree with branches. So that's where it builds up the system. So away from terminals and networks, we have to number pipework, and what we have is next flow. So you number in a chronological order, and it is numerical as well. I know I've had some users recently who've had problems and they've actually labeled them up A, B, C. It has to be numerical to recognized as the code. And ultimately what we find is that every circuit flows into another circuit. The end circuit is at the rack. That's assumed to be the suction header. And that's when we run the calculation. Suction lines, vertical risers, we can select either single or double risers. So it's really cool because we can input a minimum duty for oil return. So oil return problems, commonplace, and not necessarily from a design engineer's perspective. This is more aimed at service technicians. The amount of times where I've seen so much oil in systems because ultimately a service technician gets called out, compressors tripped on low oil, top some oil back in. Effectively, oil is not coming back. And if your defrost schedule is not set up, or ultimately if you set up a mass defrost, so you pull everything back, that's how you get the oil back to the system. But the service technician, why he or she would know that the pipe work, there's been a problem with the piping design, and ultimately that oil can lag, it can rest within an evaporator coil in worst case scenarios, take away surface area, the system's going to have to work harder to compensate. So today's session, just to go back through, is going to show how to apply MicroPipe in retail refrigeration, and the specific emphasis is on medium and low temperature suction lines. And then I'm going to use the software to size a common liquid line. So there's some assumptions made, but they're on these slides. Once a sketch, isometric schematic's been detailed, so to use the software, you'd have to sketch out your pipework. You need to add data to there. You need to number it in corresponding, starting at the fixture furthest away. And then we have duties to the terminal circuit, so we know what we're actually inputting for those circuits. And then we have the lengths of pipe. Today's demonstration, please bear with me if there's the odd mistake. I'm going to be using imperial. I'm more familiar with SI unit of measure. So we're going to be working in British thermal units, feet and PSI. So again, the suction side of the MT and LT systems will be calculated using MicroPipe first, followed by calculating the common liquid line. This here is the example store layout. So very, very crude. So in the center, I'm assuming we've got two back-to-back cases configuring an island in what would mimic a small convenience store. Below, 3 12-foot wall cases. The yellow's designating medium temperature, and then above the island, we've got 3 12-foot frozen cases designated in orange. So crude service route, the red dashed line is the common liquid line, the black lines are the MT and LT suction lines. Just an annotation for the suction risers as well. Now, in interest of time this evening, I'm sizing this system as a close coupled unit, so an assumption that the gas cooler is an integral part of the compressor rack and that the discharge and drain line is sized by the equipment OEM. Not necessarily the case in real life. We can get many systems. We see many systems like that in the UK owing to space constraints in the UK. But obviously, you know, the alternative is internal rack with external gas cooler. So that's something else I'll drop on everybody. We're going to use today's demo. We're going to focus on sizing all lines using R744 CO2 as the refrigerant. So just to show everybody, I'm not going to focus on this screen for very long. There's the sketch that I've provided, and anybody wants a copy of this presentation afterwards, just please reach out, although it's going to be out there on YouTube. So pertinent information there. We've got the design entries followed by the circuit numberings, what the types are, what the next flow path is. So it gives people an idea of how it looks should anybody want to look at and have a free trial of the system. Added the BTUs in and the length of pipe work. And again, very similar here. This is for the common liquid line. So without further ado, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to quit sharing this screen and I'm going to launch the software. And because I've got quite a lot of line sizing to do, because this is replicating, so the remainder of this session, and I'm hoping we get some questions or a little bit of time with me and Trevor afterwards, I just want to show everybody how how we can size pipework accurately using MicroPipe very rapidly. So here we go. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to launch the software. So Trevor, I'll hand over to your capable self.
Awesome. Yeah. No, so if you dive into the first 4 parts, and I see a lot of you that have sat in on a lot of the first 4 parts, but for those of you who have not, if you go into the Refrigeration Mentor YouTube channel, you can watch a couple of the original ones. And then anyone who is signed up for the MicroPipe list, which I'll throw in the chat, you'll get this series of videos just so you can try it. And I see a few of you on there that have used MicroPipe before. Thanks for showing up again, and all of you that have been supporting us. I've been learning CO2 for many years now, and every day I continue to learn more and more. And we're going to see here as James starts to go through this design once again, sizing that common liquid is not, it's a little bit different than when you're sizing just a standard HFC, because usually you'll have a medium temp system and a low temp system where you'll have those separate liquid lines. But what I learned actually a couple weeks ago, I was doing a CO2 Monday podcast with Kaiser Warren. When they design their FTE design, they don't use a common liquid line. They have both a medium temp liquid line and a low temp liquid line. And I did not know that in a CO2 booster system. So depending on the designs, you're going to have to understand how to size those. But in any standard booster system that I know of besides that, you will have one common liquid line. And that's what's cool about CO2 refrigeration. You're going to be feeding from that flash tank receiver, that main liquid line, to your medium temp cases or loads, and also to your low temp loads. And that is what's interesting about CO2 for me, because there's so many different uniquenesses about it. And as you can see, James, if you're watching what he's doing through here, he's going through each of the terminals, each of the network branches for this common liquid line. And it's important to practice at this. I wasn't an engineer. I'm still learning how to use the software, to be honest with you. I've never really designed systems before. I've used a single line software as well as I used charts before. There was a good book that I used to use out of it. Was by Glenn Hannigan, I believe, when I think it was DuPont he worked for. I can't really remember that, but that's what I've learned how to size like a single line or a condensing unit or a unit off a rack, because I've had to do that a couple times. But I never had to design a whole system. And there is definitely an art to designing refrigeration pipework, which I've, over the last few months working with James, there's different ways to do it. It's like refrigeration. There's not only one way to design it. One designer will design it where they want maybe this amount of pressure drop, this amount of efficiency, this size of pipework. That works, and there's not one size fit all, because I've heard the conversation about yes or no, that's the way it works, that's not the way it works. But one of the things that I do know, you do not want large pressure drops in your suction line. because that oil is not going to come back. And I've seen it firsthand working with manufacturers that, they have contractors who buy their equipment, then they pipe the equipment, because a lot of times the contractors who do the sizing for it when it's a single unit or a few units. And if they try to, reduce the cost by putting a smaller line in, they can get into big trouble. Because I've seen it. I've even supported some contractors and some OEMs where when I talk to them, there's a 12 or 13 psi pressure drop from the evaporator to the compressor. That's a huge amount of pressure, almost 1 bar, and that is way too much pressure drop to have. So when you understand using a software like MicroPipe that you take the whole system in, it's a game changer. It's totally a game changer. And after I seen it, after James showed me it, it really blew my mind compared to when I was using just a single line software, which they are great. Don't get me wrong. Danfoss has one, which is a really good one. HVAC Advisor, you can check them out. Andy, can't remember Andy's last name, but he has a line sizing software. And I'll actually put their links in there for the single line software because we're all about sharing knowledge. If this is the software that works for you, awesome. If it's the other ones that you need, that's great too. But we're here to share knowledge.
Everybody, sorry for cutting in there, Trevor. That's the medium temperature suction line sized. So there we go. So 17 circuits, so we can quickly see just how quick it's taken. And I'm just going to quickly run through and look at the velocities and look at the maximum penalties, something I really want to just concentrate on. And the user guides that we have, we've got the guides as well, haven't we, Trevor? So so although it might look really rapid what I'm doing, everything does make sense. I just want to show everybody with experience how quick we can use the software. And I'm just looking just through experience, and I'm happy with those line sizes that I'm seeing. So, hey, Trevor, back to you. I'll save this line, and then I'm going to do the low temperature suction. I'll have a quick break off then, as I have done now, then onto the liquid line.
Well, that only took you 5 minutes. So that's pretty amazing. And I did mention he was working on the common line. No, that was my mistake earlier. He's working on the medium temp suction, then he'll work on the low temp suction, and then he will size the common line, which is important. If anybody has any questions, please throw it in the chat or in the comments box, and I'll do my best to answer it. But using a software like this, I've been talking with multiple contractors, manufacturers all around the globe who've started trying out MicroPipe, and they say they are saving a lot of time compared to the way they were doing it before. And if you understand how to design a system already, it's going to make your life that much easier. That's some of the biggest differences between the MicroPipe full solution software or just a single line. Because you got to take each one of those into consideration. And I do have some friends that design large systems, still using single line software, and they do it in a very quick time. But one of the biggest things with this software, you can save these files, go back to them. If there's a change in the future, that you can go back to this file and you can adjust it, take a look at it. You can also send this and put this in the file and save it. Where with the single line softwares that I know of right now, you can save each one individually, and there's a lot more to that, or you can screenshot it as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put actually in the links the single line softwares for you guys to check out, because I like promoting other people who love sharing their information. So this is the HVAC Advisor one. I'm going to put it in the chat. So that's HVAC Advisor. Oh, failed to post comment. Okay, let me try that one more time. And the other one is Danfoss Cool Selector 2. I'm going to find that one as well. I love that software. Danfoss software is awesome. I use it all the time in my CO2 trainings, my supermarket trainings. Dan Foss. Two.
Hey, so everybody, that's the low temperature.
It's crazy how fast he. And your experience though, so you're not going to do this as quick as him on the first try, but you will. You can get to that point.
Absolutely, Trevor. It's just like what do I say? It's like riding a bike, really. You know, or going for a run. You know, you become a good runner by running a lot. You ride a bike at pace by cycling a lot. But it is quite an intuitive piece of software as well. So handing it back over to you, Trevor, and we'll look at the liquid line now.
Excellent. So in the chat, in the comments box, I threw in HVAC, HVACRadvisors.com. What you need to do there is when you get into this app, you go to apps on the right hand side, and then you pick refrigerant line size, and then you can start sizing single line sizes. It's a great app. This is what I used or shared with people before I found out about MicroPipe. So you can check it out. I believe also, I should check it out, Tecumseh may have one as well. I think Tecumseh does have one. I should look that up as well. Well, James is going to crush it in a few seconds. But if you go to Tech Tools by Tecumseh and resources. Yeah, so Tecumseh as well. I'm going to put the Tecumseh one in there because this is what we love doing. We love sharing knowledge. Here's another single line software by Tecumseh. And I used that one before, and I know a lot of manufacturers use that for single line software. But once again, these are different than MicroPipe. As you can see, James has just sized the full transcritical suction line. He's finished the low temp or the subcritical suction line, and now he's working on the common liquid line. And he started at about just over 10 minutes, 11 minutes ago. But that's one thing you need to do when you are a designer. You need to plan, prepare, and execute. The planning and preparing is drawing out, getting your map for that refrigeration design, understanding all your different loads, where at in the building. This is what I like about, then I'm learning more about it, is that you need to kind of picture this whole pipework before that sometimes the building's even up, which is really cool. And designing it can be challenging. I've seen it from talking to friends who design systems. But with a software like this, when you're planning, you're drawing it out, you know all the loads, you know the terminals, you know the networks that you're running it. And then after you draw that out, inputting it in here will be as quick as James is doing it. And I know a lot of you out there definitely wouldn't have a problem designing it. And we have lots of documents on how to do this, how to use the software. So I did put into the links. I'm going to put it in the other one. Let's see here. If you want to get the series, and I know quite a few of you are already signed up to this this newsletter, MicroPipe newsletter, but at offers.refrigerationmentor.com/MicroPipe, this is where you're going to be able to rewatch this series. You'll be able to get it from there, and you'll get those videos there. And it's all about repetition. The more you do this, the easier it gets. Oh, you're very welcome. Oh, you're very welcome as well. Yeah, so there's lots of options here. We're here to help. Hopefully, this will help you save time, design systems better. And once again, we're willing to give a free 1 month trial at it, so you get the hang of it. See if it's something that you can use and help your business. Is there actually any designers on the call right now who design refrigeration pipework or use a similar software like this? Well, lots of resources for you then. I really like doing these sessions where I can sit and have a conversation and I don't have to do all the work. James is over there working real hard away.
Well, there we go. That's the common liquid sized. And I just realized when you're talking away, Trevor, and I thank you very much for doing so.
You're
if I can
crushing
use
it.
the software, anybody can use it, because I'm certainly nothing special. I'm just passionate and I like to learn, and I'm actually quite a slow learner. But I'm thinking, my goodness, I'm glad Trevor's speaking through. I've been up since 5:30 a.m. this morning, so I'm just entering hour 15. I've driven 400 miles to Scotland and back to see a project and a training beforehand as well. So
champion.
I'm
Love to serve. That's what you do, but
yeah, absolutely. And we've only got one more day before the weekend as well. So
use Cool Selector 2, use box load calculator. Awesome. Yeah, definitely. They are great softwares.
Yeah, I'm happy with those liquid line velocities. Any designer on the line, they're good. Everybody's going to recognize we don't want to undersize liquid lines. We don't want too higher velocities. We don't want to suffer from liquid hammer. We're actually I'm going to talk here in metric terms. We've got a Danfoss AKV. It doesn't like a velocity at that valve at the point the refrigerant hits it of anything over 1 meter per second. So MicroPipe will actually allow you to, so you don't just have to accept what the software's saying, you can actually fix individual sizes. So actually just demonstrate that. So we're at the largest liquid line size. For example, we can look at this and think, yeah, well, I'm happy with what this is telling me, but I don't actually, I want to use 7/8 instead of 3/4. So by hitting the padlock, go to 7/8, fix it, run the calculation again. So naturally what it's going to do there, it's going to reduce the velocity feet per minute in this instance and reduce penalty. But this here, the little hand size here, so we can actually use this without any interference. So we can say 3/4, we're up at 204 feet per minute. Let's see what it says at 5/8. I don't think, yeah, it's going to accept it at 5/8, but we're up at a higher velocity there. And ultimately, what we're going to start to see is, well, let me come out of here, because it may not accept a 5/8 circuit due to the penalty I've put in, but it may do. It's accepted it, but as we can see, we're getting up to those higher feet per minute. And obviously anything on the outlet of that liquid line, we want to make sure that we've got a decent head, decent column of solid liquid at a reasonable velocity as well. 300 feet per minute still, that's still not, it's not an excessive velocity, but I try to just accept what the software says. But in some instances, you may not want to do that. And another good thing about the software, and I think you hit on this, Trevor, about, if there's changes. So where the software really comes into its own, with all designers have seen this, we designed a big scheme for a supermarket, and just before we hit the construction phase, or even during the construction phase, we want to do some changes. We want to add another couple of cases here, take some away from here. You can modify the calculation. And actually, by each time you've saved it, you're not going to overwrite. As long as you save it as something else, maybe call it revision A, B, C, whatever you can save those file names as. As long as you don't override them, you can keep that chronological history of the calculations from the first draft all the way through to completed installation. So it offers a true reflection of what the as installed services and refrigeration lines look like within a supermarket or convenience store.
Yeah, and that's one awesome thing about it that I've noticed, that you can save these files, pull them right back up, and just even double check. Like, I know you've done charts for years. Like, I can't imagine how many like files and folders you would have to go through and to find that specific line. If you're very well organized, I guess you would have them broken down into different individual terminals and networks and a lot of different file folders. And it's doable. But this is about saving time. If you can save time for your customers, and save time for yourself.
Absolutely. Well, I've stopped sharing screen now, everybody. I've run through. Welcome any questions. I'm sure Trevor would. I'm really pleased about this. We've kind of been allowing sort of 45 minutes up to 60 minutes for these sessions, and today was all about expedience. I wanted to demonstrate, even when we've got the awkward, the common liquid line. And it was interesting what you said about Kaiser, and where the replicating. So we've got a medium low temperature system, booster system, and there's a liquid line serving the medium temperature and a liquid line serving the LT fixtures. That's absolutely the panacea, really. So that's what we do in a single temperature system. Where you'd apply a common liquid line for me is actually to save your customer money. I've seen designs before where there should have been a common liquid line gone in because it's a booster arrangement, but to save time on design, which is a little bit of a shame, because it's going to put an amount of money on in terms of quantities of materials and also installation labor to install. So, and I think we demonstrated how quick, and I just can't say enough. It's a great piece of software. It's been, I think, just to emphasize to new people on the call, and this is conservative, over 30,000 systems, all the way from a humble condensing unit, maybe with just a cold room fixture, all the way to big distributed package systems on large racks in big supermarkets, to blast freezers, and also processing centers where we might be using secondary systems. The software allows you to size glycol pipework or CO2 as a secondary. We think there's over 30,000 conservatively just in the small island of the UK. It's pretty phenomenal. It does what it says it should do. There is an emphasis. I learned to use the software on my day one when I joined the refrigeration industry. I was a time-served mechanical engineer, but I knew nothing about refrigeration or thermodynamics. I will say this: I like to anybody I've trained and mentored, before I set them loose on the software, I'd like them to understand the basics of pressure enthalpy chart, how to select components, what specific components do, because as with any software, it's a time saver, and you can learn as much or as little as you want from using the software. So I've always promoted, before you use it in anger, and that's what I'm here for. So if there's anybody who's never designed before but wants to use the system, reach out. I can do some basic pipe sizing, component selection, online demos, no problem at all.
Yeah, we do have a question here.
Excellent.
Do you have any suggestions for any software for compressor rack system designs for cold storage?
No, I don't. But the one I would suggest is this, because we can actually use White Rose software to size those suction headers and those discharge headers. So who's asked the question, please reach out and let me send a copy of the software. So I'll tell you the one user who uses it in the UK, and that's Hubbard, who are part of Dakin. They select their headers and size their headers and software from the compressors, so their equipment, their OEM equipment. And as much as anything, they do it for that check, Trevor. So they can actually demonstrate, if there was ever an occurrence of a problem out on the field, rather than sizing off a chart, they've got something tangible. So the systems might only be 5 or 6 pieces of pipework, but they like it because it gives them something to call back on.
That's awesome.
So it's actually a good question, that, Trevor. It's getting me going in terms of we could do a specific session on rack pipework.
Yeah. So
even component selections in between, strainers, filters.
Yeah, usually the main manufacturer I've used and helped design or select compressor selection for a rack. So that's a little bit different than the piping, right? Because MicroPipe will do the piping. If you're talking about compressor selection, you can go to either Bitzer or Copeland. I'm sure other manufacturers have it as well, but like the Select 8 software, that's Europe, product selection software, North America, that's both Copeland, or the Bitzer Select Soft. I'm sure Bach has it, Durain, many other manufacturers as well probably have it too. Vilter may for the industrial side, but if you're looking for those compressor selection, that I would check those ones out to start with anyway. And there's many more. And if anybody knows more, you can just throw in the chat to help out and share that knowledge.
For sure. And Trevor, I would say this, I think it's a great resource for anybody to use. And ultimately, the question's been asked. I could, if somebody said to me, "Oh, can you size the pipework? I'm going to have 5 scroll compressors." So I'd know what the outlet, the suction inlets are and the discharge outlets are. And you could actually just combine those duties and ultimately, use a chart, and it's going to give you a diameter. You could do it that way. It isn't necessarily, it's not a hard, arduous task like sizing pipework, feeding individual fixtures like what we've just concentrated on. But as I say, it just gives that peace of mind for a designer that it's being done, and also issue them out to customer as well, just to say, hey, if you want to just we've done our QA internally in terms of we've made sure that the components and the lines have been appropriately sized in terms of the equipment that we're supplying.
Yeah, it's real important to do that, right? You always want to double check, and it's for sure way easier with MicroPipe than using single line software. They're just quicker. That's
quicker, saves time, gives the design engineer more time back. It provides them more time to do other things. So, and a range of refrigerants as well, Trevor. We've got synthetics on there. We've got our 404A. Hopefully, no one's still using it, but it's there. We've got 448, 449, 407A, 407F. In the updated version, we are going to be adding some of the HFO refrigerants, but I think the big message is it's already set up for natural CO2. We use CO2 as transcritical. We can use it. We can size the software using for pump secondary. Yeah. We've got, as I say, we could even do a demo on secondary pipe sizing, where for glycols, and the software itself, you can actually set the percentage additive. So you can say, right, I want a system, I want to size pipework based on 30% propylene glycol concentration, ethylene glycol as well. We've got a full range of tubing, so we can use standard refrigeration grade copper pipework. I've used this demo using K65, which is very common in the UK and Europe, which is there's a small iron content in, and that raises its the ability to raise its maximum working pressure. So absolutely ideal for transcritical CO2, especially on the high side. Got 130 bar rated pipework, which is excellent. It does away with having to get specialist steel headers, and also those on site welding. So as we know, welding compared to brazing, it takes longer. It's a different skill set completely. So, but we've got the option on glycol pipework using the software to use plastic pipework, so it covers a full range.
Wow. Got another question here. Is the software able to size pipework for ammonia systems or just
Yes,
CO2
it is.
and HFO?
No, absolutely great question. I'm not in the world of ammonia. I'm a retail refrigeration engineer, but yes, it does. And we have a lot of users in the UK, a lot of industrial refrigeration contractors who will actually only select ammonia and glycol as well when they've got a secondary. But yes, it does. Ammonia is in there.
And I didn't even know it did glycol. So look, I learned something every session we do. I learned something. So
that's why, Trevor. That's why I can't be time prescriptive in terms of how long is this thing going to take in terms of the rewrite. There's over 110,000 individual lines of code.
Yeah, no, I love it, and I learned because I know lots of people that still do set up glycol systems, as well as I talked with one of your good friends, Daniel Clark, on Monday, and he mentioned that he uses, and I think he uses more of the glycol defrost system in CO2 system. So, it's cool
that was really fascinating to listen to. We live within an hour of each other, and we get on really well, and we don't talk enough. I mean, I put in the chat box, and I know we're talking away from refrigeration, but Dan's from a farming background, just like my family. Just little things like that. But when he mentioned the getting back on track, the glycol defrost system, that was really interesting because glycol defrosting is common in larger systems, more usually in secondary glycol arrangements where we've got ammonia primary system. So I'm really interested to learn about what has made him go that way, because he'll have done some really deep analysis and research, will Dan, and without doubt there's going to be benefits. It might be more costly, but he'll have worked out the life cycle and the benefits, so I'm really, I'm going to reach out to him when I come back off holiday.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love this, man. Learning never stops, and this is what's great about refrigeration. We continue to learn. Hopefully, we answered all the questions that come in. If anybody else has any questions, please shoot them off to us. Do you want to bring up our contact slide there, James?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So people can reach out to us. They'll see our contact information. Like I mentioned, I put in the chat or the comments that link for MicroPipe. offers.refrigerationmentor.com/micropipe. And if you put your name and email address in there, you will get a bunch of videos that we've done already, plus this 5-part series. And so James just put up the contact information. You can email us if you would like a free trial, or you can, send us an email.
Yeah. Reach out on LinkedIn as well.
LinkedIn, yeah. I got a little brain fog there. LinkedIn, social media. Reach out to us on any platform. We're here to help. We want to help you help your customers. So if we can help you help your customers, we got her made. James, any final thoughts?
Not from me. Just I'd like to thank everybody who's taken time out of the day or evening to join us.
Yeah, I really appreciate everyone over the last 5 sessions be here. And once again, James, let's get a conversation going. Talk to you soon.
Yeah. Brilliant. Speak soon, everyone. Bye-bye.